Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. How you guys all doing? Hope you guys are doing fine. In today's video we're going to be learning how to cut this beautiful short backless pencil dress that you can see right here. I'm going to be showing us how to create the design at the back, how to create the bust start as well, and also how to cut the sleeve. This is actually the back that I have drafted out, and I'll be showing you how to go about with it. With that being said, let's get started. So you'll be needing a pattern paper for this, and you're going to be placing your pattern paper on fold. You can actually draft this directly on the fabric, especially if you are used to drafting directly on the fabric. And the first thing to do is to draw a straight line that you are going to be taking all your measurements. So the length and width of this pattern paper is as shown. So the first thing we're going to do is to mark out our neck width measurements. My neck width is 2.8 inches, and you can get that by dividing your bust by 12. And then from there, you're going to mark your neck depth. Mine is 3 inches. So depending on how low you want your neckline to be, you're going to mark it. And then you connect it with your front curve, drawing the neckline like this. And then from the top line, you're going to mark your bust line. And from your bust line, go up by 2 inches. And that will be your chest line. So after you mark it, you're going to draw a straight line like this. And then here, I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2, and I'm going to be marking it on the top line. I'll also mark the same measurements on the chest line like this. And then from here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. And with my straight rule, I'm going to connect it to the neck width like this. And this will be the shoulder of the dress. So from the shoulder, I'm going to connect it all the way to the chest line like this. Now I'm going to divide this line by 2. And from here, I'm going to divide my bust by 4, and I'll mark it there. And then with my front curve, I'm just going to connect it like this. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to place my measuring tape on my shoulder, and I'm going to measure from my shoulder down to my waistline. So I'm using my back waistline measurement, which is 15 inches for this particular tutorial. So I'm just going to mark it on both sides, and I'll draw a straight line like this. And this will be the waistline of this dress. So another thing to do is to mark out my hip line measurements. So from my shoulder down to the widest part of my hip is my hip line measurements, and I'm using 23 inches for mine. With my straight rule, I'm just going to connect it like this, and I'll label it. The next thing to do now is I'm going to divide my bust span measurement by 2, which is also known as the nipple to nipple measurements, and I'll mark it on the bust line, on the waistline, and on the hip line. With my straight rule, I'm going to connect it, drawing a straight line. But from the hip line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches, and I'm going to connect it like this. So now the next thing to do is from my top line, I'm going to mark out my under bust measurements. So you take your measuring tape from your shoulder down to where your bust ends. The essence of this under bust is because we are not going to be using bra for this because it's a backless dress. And so we are trying to tighten the under bust so that it's going to be at least fitted around the bust. And then now I'm going to be using a dart of 1/2 inch on both sides for the waistline, while I will use a dart of 0.75 inch on the under bust line. And with this, I'm just going to connect it like this, tightening up the under bust line. And then now I'm just going to connect it all the way down to the hip line like this. So from here, I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and I'm going to use my front curve to connect it like this. But because I'm trying to recreate exactly what I have on the thumbnail, I'm just going to be connecting it directly on the bust line like this. So the dart is going to extend all the way to the bust line. And take note that when you are cutting it on the fabric, you're going to be tracing out the dart onto the fabric so that you can take the dart afterwards. When you're cutting this on the fabric, you're going to cut this and Then you're going to be tracing out this exact dot on the fabric, either with your chalk or with your tracing wheel, and you're going to be taking the dots. From here, I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4. I'll mark it there, and I'll add the dots that is on the waistline. So the dot that is on the waistline is 1 inch, so I'm just going to add that 1 inch there. And then on the chest line, I'm going to be adding half an inch to my chest line measurements like this. And with my straight rule, I'm just going to be connecting it, drawing a straight line like this. And then on the hip line, I'm going to divide my hip by 4. And for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be adding extra half an inch or 1 inch to the measurement. The essence of this is because the dress is not fitted around the hip. It has a little allowance to it. So either half an inch or 1 inch should be enough for this exaggerated hip. Then from the top line, I'm going to measure the length of the dress. So depending on how long you want the dress to be, you can use 33, you can use 34, or 32, depending on how short you want it to be. So after that, you're just going to draw a straight line like this. Then from here, whatever I have on the hip line, I'm going to minus 1.5 inches from it. So what I have is 10 inches minus 1.5, that is 8.5. So I'm just going to be marking it on the length of the dress so that we can be able to create that pencil-like effect that you can see on the dress. So before you cut, remember to add allowance, especially if you are cutting directly on the fabric. Remember to add your sewing allowance to it. Please, one important thing to note is when you are done cutting it out, you're going to be leaving this excess that we cut out, because for the neckline of the back, I'm going to show you how you can use that to cut the neckline. So after cutting it out, this is what we have for the front right here. So for the front, you're going to be cutting it on folds so that by the time you open it up, it's going to be like this. So when you are cutting, you are going to place it on fold. After you are done cutting, you are going to open up the fabric like this. And where the dart is, you are going to trace it on the fabric using your chalk or your tracing wheel. Trace it exactly where it is, and you're going to take the darts as it is. Then now, for the back, I'm just going to place it on fold again, and I'm going to be showing you how to cut out the back. So for the back, I'm just going to go up by 2 inches right here, which is the same as the underbust line. While from the neckline, I'm going to go down by 1 inch. And then from this 1 inch point, I'm going to be connecting it to the underbust line like this. So as you can see, this is what we have right here. And the curving, it's not exactly straight all the way to the end. I curved it a little bit before connecting it with my straight rule. And then now I'm just going to cut it out, and this is what we have right here. When you're joining it, it's not going to be together. It's going to be 2 inches away from the skirt part of the dress. So this place, we're going to be adding zip to this. So in order to do that, I'm just going to take half an inch away from it. The essence of this is to make sure that it is fitted around the waistline, especially at the back, and to avoid any bulginess at that point. So I'm just going to cut this out, and then I'll open this other part. And by the time you are done, this is what it should look like right here. We are going to be cutting the front with the lining and the back with the lining as well. At the side seam, you are going to be closing it with the lining because we are going to be attaching the back 2 inches away from the waistline, okay? So at this point, I realized that the neckline for the back is deep, like we are using the front neckline for the back. This is not compulsory, but I decided to use the neckline for the back instead. So what I did was to take the piece of pattern paper that I cut out earlier, and I taped everything together. And I'm going to be cutting out the neckline for the back. So the neckline for the back is not going to be the same as the neckline of the front. Like I said, this is optional. You don't need to do this, but I like to maintain the neckline for the back. So I just cut out the neckline for the back. And I did that by going up by 1 inch, and I'll just connect it to these points. And then now I'll just go down by 1 inch and I'll connect it to that 2 inches point like this. So this point we're going to open it up like this, and what we're going to be doing is to be attaching a button at this point like this. So we're going to be attaching a button and a hook so that we can close that point like this. And this is what it looks like. So this place, there is going to be a zip that will be joining the skirt parts together like this. So another thing to do is to add allowance to the waistline, and you're going to add allowance to these points. But every other part I've added allowance, so there's no need to add extra allowance to it again. Why for the sleeve, I have a piece of fabric here that I'm going to be using to show you how to cut the sleeve. The length and width of the fabric is as shown. And then to cut out the sleeve, we're going to divide our bust by 4. And we're going to add 1.5 inches to it. So what I got is about 4.28 or something thereabouts. So I just approximated it to 4.5 and I mark it out, and I'm going to draw a straight line like this. So from this straight line, I'm going to be marking out my chest line measurements. Remember, my chest line measurement is 8 inches. So I'm just going to mark 8 inches there. And then I'm going to go in by 1 inch. So from this 1 inch point, I'm going to slant it, connecting it like this. And then from here to here, I'm going to find the midpoint, which is about 4.25 inches there. So from the midpoint, I'll go up by ½ inch. And with my front curve, I'm just going to connect it like this, while I'll connect it all the way down like this. So the next thing to do is to determine how long I want this sleeve to be. So I'm using 24 inches for mine. So I'm just going to mark out that 24 inches and draw a straight line like this. So from the length of the sleeve, I'm going to mark out how wide I want the sleeve to be. I'm using 12 inches on fold. That means it's 24 inches in all. So this is the sleeve, and I'll just go ahead and cut it out like this. And this is basically it. So just place this on the fabric and cut. You can even drop this directly on the fabric. Okay, so you're just going to cut this out and you're going to be attaching it to the dress. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one.